Hey guys, what's going on? Stay geesing. Welcome to this week's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you're walking your Potbelly Pig in Skokie, Illinois, brushing your teeth, you got your AirPods in, maybe you're walking from class to class in a blizzard, maybe you're in New Mexico and you're on the New Mexico University campus walking from the admin building to the library. What are the chances that we just nailed that? But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate all the support of the podcast. Super excited to dial in today. It felt like it was time. It felt like it was time to do another Q&A episode. So earlier, I put out an APB to Twitter, Discord, YouTube community. It's like almost kind of like a Facebook post for YouTube, which is, I think, underused, but it's super, super dialed. I like it. Snapchat and Instagram. And so we're going to be answering your questions throughout this podcast. I like to do them every now and then, because I think it's a great way to, get right to the potatoes and meat of what you're thinking about, especially if you listen to the podcast, maybe you're like, hey, I was wondering this, or your take on this, or what do I do here? And well, I'm not a big individual to dole out advice. It's more about, hey, this is what I've done. And that's where I'm way more open to talk about things. Like if I get asked something, like, hey, how do I do this? And it happens to be something I've done. That's when it feels the best, because I'm not just pontificating. It's like, hey, you go through some struggles, you learn some things, and here's why it worked or didn't work out. But anyways, I'm going to do my best to answer as many as humanly possible. So thank you guys for dialing in. Let's jump right into it. The first one is from the YouTube community page, youtube.com/Dan Kiesling. The MM Optimist says, do you have any advice for someone who's losing passion for something they once had, like an instrument, even though they really want to enjoy it still? So the question I would fire back is, why don't you enjoy it? Or why are you losing the passion? And I think what I try to do is give tactical advice, like, okay, hey, it's nice to talk about pontificating and theory and stuff like that, but this would be my best advice, is to take a break, right? And the only thing I can directly correlate it to, and it's not losing a passion for, but this is just what popped up into my head when I first read this, is that when I go to a convention like PAX or PAX, like a gaming convention, you come back so energized. And I think it's kind of twofold. One, you're actually stepping away from what you've been doing for a couple days. And also you kind of get re-energized by being around similar people in the same environment and get new ideas and things and fired up in that nature. But I think at the crux of it, and it's not that, I ever lost passion for doing what I was doing, but sometimes it's nice to take a step away, take a few days off, but literally take a few days off. Don't think about it. Don't mess with it. And then come back and see how you feel. And then what I would say is that if you still feel the same way, then maybe it's time to, just take a long break from it and focus on something else. Because I feel like part of the useful thing about it is figuring out what your passion is or what you enjoy to do. Is it's kind of like you have a grocery list, but it's like an inverted grocery list, and you cross off things that you try and you don't like, and eventually you're left with one or two or three things on the list, and you're like, oh, it's these three things. But the most important thing is kind of to do what you're already doing, is to physically do things that you think you want to do, and then as they fall off, and that's part of life. Like, things change, a lot of things have changed for me. Things that I was passionate about have changed. I wouldn't say they go away, but they vary in degree of importance to you. And sometimes the importance increases over time. So I hope that helps, Optimist. Next one is this from Logan T. It says, Dan, having watched your season of Big Brother the other day, well played. Do you ever feel guilty about manipulating people? I realize it's part of the game, but I think it would have given me a hard time. The best way I can equate it to is that whenever I'm truly competing, I always stay within the confines of the game. And so, if, for example, we're playing Monopoly, I'm going to play it really hard. And that's part of one of the mechanics of the game of Big Brother. I will say, though, it's not, I don't want to say easy. It's not an easy thing, but to me, it's like a self-contained thing. It's not something that I do on a daily basis. It's something I do in a competitive game environment with whatever $500,000 on the line. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope so. Next one's from Jeremy. It says, hey, Dan, what are the next steps you want to take on your game broadcasting? I thoroughly enjoy your runs on Mario Maker 2. Very entertaining. What will be your range of games you want to do moving forward? To me, it's always finding the mix of things that are genuinely enjoyable, fun, exciting, challenging. That's what I look for in a game. Exciting, challenging, fun, replayable, have a shot to get better, show progress, but also be entertaining. And so I that's always the give and take. There are games out there that I would love to play, but they're not necessarily entertaining to watch, or not as entertaining as some available games out there. So I don't know. I can never say, hey, a year from now this will be the game on the channel. It's like a trial and error. You know, some things work, some things don't. You know, before I started recording this, I looked at a Tetris 99 episode. I really enjoy the game, and I'm like, I was a little surprised that there's a solid amount of people enjoying that. So I'm like, okay, as soon as we're done with the podcast, I'm going to do some more Tetris 99, and I feel like I'm a lot more, especially even since starting the podcast, I'm a lot more, not lenient, but I'm a lot more getting of the game, right? You know, I check something called Social Blade on my phone, maybe once a day, maybe once every other day, and it just tells you, hey, here's the number of views you had, here's the number of subscribers, and it's been down for about a week, but I don't. It's such a long-term thing for me. I don't even worry about it. It's like, okay, hey, to me, that's just like an indication. Okay, try to change something up. Change up one small thing. Maybe work a little bit longer. Make a few more videos this week. See if that changes anything. But I don't really I don't want to say I'm in a comfortable place, but I'm in a confident place of knowing what signals to read and what buttons to push in terms of where to spend my time and what to create. And sometimes you don't know, but I just know when it's time to try something new or try to kind of go deep into the bag of tricks and get creative and try something really out there. Next question is from Banana DZN SD. Says, why do you have a grudge against The Last of Us ending? Why do you think it's hipster-like? I'm not going to spoil the ending if you've never played The Last of Us, but I'm going to share my thoughts on it. And it's kind of like an inside joke in the community, and if you watch the live stream, but I really enjoyed, I wouldn't say really, it was an enjoyable experience. I'd say like a B to B plus experience. The ending for me just felt like a very, very hipster ending that didn't make sense in the broad story. It made sense to make a sequel, which I get. I understand, but I feel like when the ending is, when I say hipster-like, it's like they're going against the grain for the sake of going against the grain, where I feel like a more traditional ending at the end of that game makes so much sense. But I think, in my opinion, I think it was a combination of trying to do something kind of unique and shock-worthy while also allowing them the ability to create a sequel to the game. And so I think that was, it almost felt like, I just remember being a little bit, and I don't get upset about stuff like that. I just remember feeling kind of like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me, more or less. I feel like that's how I felt at that ending. And I don't mind that if I'm not super invested, but I was invested into the game, and to have that kind of script flipped, or almost like a lack of ending, it resonated with me. And also, you know, it's got its special place on the do not play list. All right. Next question is from Celia's Brood on YouTube. Says, it's been a while since you've last played Star Citizen. Have you been keeping tabs on the development? And would you go back and play it now with new features and planets and have a good one? I keep an eye on Star Citizen because I'm still very optimistic of what the game will become, but I just think it's a really far, far away from doing that and from being what it's going to be. And one of the things I'm most excited for is Squadron 42, which is a single player game. But to me, it got to a point where I had exhausted all the gameplay elements, and there haven't been any gameplay elements that have been exciting enough for me to get back into it, because there are other games that are really exciting. For example, if I never took a break from Star Citizen, I never would have got into Escape from Tarkov, which it kind of takes a step back for me, is enjoying what's out now as opposed to hedging or going through maybe a rougher, unpolished game when there's really fun games out now to play. And that's kind of what it comes down to me. When Star Citizen becomes fun to play, that's when I'll play it. But, I'm very optimistic about it. I still watch it from afar. And, I'm excited for it to continue to progress and hopefully one day be done. Our next question is from Kevin Dunn on YouTube. Said, if you could only listen to one record for the rest of eternity, which one would you pick and why? I would probably go Weezer, Pinkerton, or Kanye Red album. I think one of those two. Next one says from General P123 says, do you know that you have fans even in Serbia? I have to say that's not something that I've thought about before, but one of the things that's been interesting to me, you guys hear me talk about it from time to time on the podcast, is the deal that we have with GameTune, which is essentially like a television network we produce content for. And specifically they target overseas and it's larger in Europe and the surrounding countries that are bordering that area. And so I get some messages, probably about 1 or 2 a week, from individuals in countries that I may not have necessarily been super familiar with, but they enjoy GameTune. I even got a message today on Discord about someone who enjoyed Apex on GameTune. So it's cool. It's cool. To me, that's awesome because, I don't know if I'll ever be in Serbia, but if I am, to me, that's the cool thing about it. And I don't really prefer to use the term fans, but whenever I travel, and that's part of one of the large reasons why I do everything I do on the community outreach side, from the texting and the mailing list, is that when I do travel, I want to have the ability to be able to say, hey, I'm in Skokie, Illinois, who's around, let's meet up. And I would feel like that would be the same in Serbia if I ever end up out that way. Brandy M says, next question, if I ever had the chance to remake any game, what would it be and why? Wow. Good question. I would love to see Ultima Online in a modern day era, the gameplay elements. And the reason being is that there's really nothing that's ever been done since there were loot permanents. And I could sit here and go on and on about Ultima Online, but it's just really, from a gameplay experience, there's really been nothing like it since the mid to late 90s, which is when it was out, and there hasn't been anything since. So I think that would be interesting to see. I don't know how well it would do by today's standards, but I don't know. I just feel like people look for different things to play, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, because there's a lot of options out there, but a lot of the more heavily backed things are samey, which is fine. But that would be the game. This next question is from There's CM789. It says, how do you balance work, family, streaming, etc.? You always put on high quality shows. Do you see other areas slip a bit? 100%. And sometimes the areas that slip are not the ones that are forward facing, whether it be sleep or, communication or whatever. And to me, it's always a process, is that there's things that I am extremely passionate about and enjoy doing and feel very grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that. And so I don't know. I just can't see at any point in my life ever being bored, because there's so much that I'm interested in. And, whenever something, balance isn't necessarily the right word, but it's always a feeling for me. It's like, hey, I'm feeling like, hey, I haven't seen X and Y lately, or I haven't done this lately. I need to adjust my day to do that. And one of the, for me, one of the biggest areas that I know that I need to work on to maximize that is planning the day. And the days that I plan the day, they're extremely efficient, and I essentially get to knock out pretty much everything that I need to. The days that I don't plan, that I just kind of go from fire to fire, they aren't always the most efficient. So there's always room in it, but I think the most important thing is that you're aware of what area that's important to you that you're not focused on. Sif the Shapeless on YouTube says, do you have any tips for a fresh young 30-year-old moving into midlife territory? There's a lot of things I say, but I can't stress this enough. And the thing about the podcast is nothing but transparency. But this may sound like a little non-transparent, or you can be like, yeah, right, but it does. Like I can't stress to you how much I feel this way. I don't feel any different now than almost when I did when I was a kid, like late teens. I just don't. Like I have more responsibilities, but I don't feel or think much difference. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of things I've, learned from, but I just don't, I just think it's a different time. Like I don't feel like, I just think about when I was younger and I was, around 35 and 36-year-olds or however old someone's in their mid 30s. It just doesn't feel that way. And maybe it's because I'm able to do what I enjoy doing. And I think back in the day, I would say like the 90s or 80s, that wasn't like available. There weren't these opportunities. There weren't opportunities to record gameplay videos and put them up on the internet, or have a live gaming show and be able to make a living doing that. It just wasn't available. So I think that really plays into being young and feeling young. Like I feel really good now that physically, like, I could still do pretty much everything physically. It takes a little bit longer maybe to recover, but I'm also very aware that I'm protective of what I do physically. Like I would love to play basketball every single day, but I don't play at all because I have a concern of getting injured, and if I get injured, then all of a sudden I can't run around and do X, Y, and Z that I need to. So there's things I definitely sacrifice to be able to do that, but it's more out of because I choose to. Like I know, you could get hurt doing anything, you could hurt running, but I just try to avoid, competitive things that I have always enjoyed doing, just because the trade-off for me isn't there right now. Next question is from Raspberry Sherbert. It says, will I play Secret Hitler with the NLSS crew? If you have never heard of it, Secret Hitler is like one of those mafia-style board games where it's all just social gameplay. And my take on those, I'm good to play a social game like that or Project Winter about once every 4 months. And I think part of it is, I spent 180 days of my life, 24 hours a day doing that. So it's fun, but not every day. You kind of got to get up for something like that. And, so one day I'd like to, but, there's no plans now. We just played Project Winter like 3 weeks ago, and I'm good. I got my fill of that. Next question is from 11264 Kev. What's my opinion on the Yandhi Leak album? Yandhi is the mythical next release of Kanye. I haven't heard it, and I didn't know it got leaked, so I have no opinion on it. Aaron S. says, these questions are way deeper than I expected. Would I like to help you with my marriage proposal? I mean, sure, Aaron S. Whatever I can do to help. All right, let's slide over to Twitter here. Next question is from a community regular. Mirror Bear says, in your early streaming and YouTube days, by the way, congrats on your Tetris 99 wins. I'm not jealous at all. In your early streaming and YouTube days, what kept you going? Me and my brother have been watching you for a while, and it's crazy to see how much your channel has grown. I tried thinking in the early days, I didn't really know any better. In the early days, I was just doing it and putting it out there and excited to do it. And I don't know. I don't really remember much about that. I remember just kind of treating it the same way I do now. I just enjoying the process, enjoying recording, as odd as it sounds, enjoying recording BioShock Infinite videos and being excited about it and kind of figuring it out. I look back and I spent a lot of time doing stuff on Twitch that were not the right moves. Just changing direction 100 times, changing times a million times. But I look at that as also learning, right? So all those, I don't call them mistakes, but all those things I was doing that may not have been the most efficient or the most smart decisions at the time, it helped me delineate or help me cross things off the list of how not to do it. And when I say how not to do it, there's really no way to do it, just how to do it for yourself, for it to make sense for you in your life. And I don't know, to me, it was never an option of not doing it because I couldn't picture myself not doing it. I had no control. I don't say I have no control. I have some control, the amount of quote unquote success you have. And the way I look at it, which is not how everyone looks at it, and some people would disagree, and rightfully so, is to me, I just put my head down, enjoy the process, and stick with it, and know that some videos are going to do well, some things are going to grow. But over time, if I do the actions on a day-to-day basis, recording videos, dialing into the community, staying tuned in, trying different things, using the time wisely, streaming on a regular basis and a consistent basis. If you do that, if you're willing to do it for a long time and you're experiencing growth, whether it's small or large, and you enjoy it, I don't see how you don't win, but to me, my expectations are in line with what I want, right? So, and I may have talked about this with Mathis and Ryan Gary. Like, my goal isn't to be ninja, right? I don't have any aspirations to be the single biggest individual on Twitch or on YouTube. It's not that. I just want to be able to do this to the capacity I'm doing it and be able to make a living doing it. And eventually what I'd like to do is be forced into a position where I got to make the decision if I go full time or not yet. Where it's like, hey, Dan, things are going so well, for you not to do it is negligent. And I'm not there yet, but I just don't think, and if that doesn't happen, I'm cool with it. Like, if you're like, hey, Dan, this is how things are going to be until you decide to shut it down, dude, I'm thrilled. I enjoy it. I enjoy the community. I enjoy making videos. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy being able to get to do something every day that I truly enjoy. And it is so weird to think of, but again, as a kid, I would never believe it. But when I do a show, it's like, man, I have a timer in front of me and I look down, I'm like, where did that time go? It just goes by so fast. And I feel like that's a good indication of whatever you're doing. If time flies by fast when you're doing it, it's probably a good indication that's something you should be doing or something that you're passionate about. But for me, I always just looked at it as a long-term thing. And even now, after doing it since, for what are we in, 7 years, which is crazy to think, is that there is no shortcut. And I think even if there was a shortcut, it probably wouldn't feel the same way. Like, to get that message from you, Mir, it feels good because it's like, it has been a grind. And I don't know. I don't, not say a shortcut, but, say you catch a wave and you explode overnight. I don't know if I would appreciate it the same way I do now. And so I don't know. I have zero regrets. And to me, it's just such a long-term thing. And I think because of that, too, it allows me to make decisions based on what's best long-term, not best short-term. And for example, there was this deal that we're going back and forth on this week with a, it's a sponsored video. And at some point, it just got to the point where like, this doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel like the right move. It was a really good deal, I guess, you could say financially for what was required, but it just didn't feel right. And I'm like, well, is this a good short-term or long? It would be a great short-term move, but long-term, it just doesn't make sense. And so that's how I make decisions regarding the channel and the community and videos. And so, to have that mindset and that approach really, I think, has helped in the long run. But I also realize, other people kind of go all in on it and they aren't able to make those decisions, which I think, in my opinion, is a mistake. If you do want to do this, my thing is like, always make sure you're taking care of yourself, right? So if you have a part-time job or full-time job, do it that way. And that way you're always in a position where you don't feel like you have to take shortcuts or make bad decisions to get by. That's been good. But thanks for the question. Michael M. on Twitter says, am I excited for soccer and the Legend of Bumbo? Oddly enough, I'm very excited for Edmund McMillan's next game. I think it looks unique. I think it looks different. I think it's, definitely going to try it 100%. And that's the thing. I feel like when he creates a new game, he always tries to do something a little different, which is always, he's always going to be someone, whatever he makes, I'm going to try out as long as it's something a little different, because I like seeing things that are new to the industry and new to gaming. And I can't say I've ever played a game that has a cardboard aesthetic to it. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Next question is from Gran Pooh Bear. He's been on the podcast, interviewed him. Good dude. Says, what content creator would do great on Big Brother? So a couple things I would look at is who's really competitive, and also who has an ability to turn off emotional or become non-emotional about feedback. So, and it's not easy, right? But I know a lot of people in the space, whether Twitch or YouTube, can get emotionally moved one way or another by comments. So that would be the criteria: competitive and able to control emotions. And so I'm just trying to think who I think off the top of my head would do well. And you also kind of got to have a little bit, of a killer instinct. I mean, like, to do well, right? Where it's like you got to make some tough decisions. And so I think a lot of the people, especially in the crew that I play with, are really, really genuinely nice people. Not that, to do well on reality TV, you have to be not nice. I don't know. I don't. I'm trying to think of people offhand that would do really well. I would put, and I don't know Grand Pooh Bear well enough on a personal level, and I haven't really seen. But one of the things I know about him is I haven't really seen him rage, and he plays some really, really difficult stuff. So I think that would probably be a check mark in his corner. Let me just go through. Let's go through team unity. I think Ryan would be very beloved on a show. I think people would have a tough time voting him out, but I think he's an extremely kind individual, and I don't know that he could win just by being himself and being nice. I think Melf would be someone that would make it pretty far. I don't know, and it feels kind of weird dissecting people, because I don't want to say something critical and then take it the wrong way. But I think Melf's like really nice, and I feel like to do well, sometimes you got to be a little not nice. I think Brian's got a little bit more of that in him than Melf. I think Melf would be a little too nice, which is a compliment. And I think Ryan maybe with the tad of ego, I think Ryan could kind of pull it off. But I don't know. That's a tough question. I may have to get back to you on that one. But I think most of the people that I know and have become friends with, they're all probably too nice to be on reality TV. Next question is from Scott Cole, who's a play-by-play broadcaster and does a lot of Madden commentary. What's the meaning to life? You know what? I know he's asking this in like a funny way. But I'm going to hit him. I think the meaning of life is just kind of understanding what makes you happy and being able to pursue that without worried about what other people think about it. Next question from Kelsey McLean on Twitter. And I got to look this up. I have no idea what this is. She says, do you know your enneagram? What is an enneagram? Personality. I don't know what that it is. Enneagram is the model of human psyche, which is principally understood and taught as the typology of 9 interconnected personality types. I have no idea what that is, Kelsey. I mean, like, I know what it is now, but I don't know what number I would be. There's got to be some kind of test you take to do that. It's a great question. But, Grand Pooh Bear and Kelsey got me frozen on the Q&A. All right, next one is, should the Lions draft a QB or wide receiver next year? This is from Jorge. Neither. More defense and offensive linemen. Next question is from Majestic Beard on Twitter. Says, what's one thing about your everyday life that no one would ever know from just watching your streams or YouTube content? It's a good question. The thing I was going to say, I think people know about me, is that I'm just really not that into stuff. So, like, I live pretty simply. Like, I don't need a lot of stuff. But, we talk about that. I think there's hints of that. People can pick up on that with a 2009 Ford Escape with 95,000 miles on it. I want to give you a better answer on this. Something that people would know. I talk about it a little bit, but I'm pretty reserved. I wouldn't say shy, but not very social in real life. Meaning if there's a party, I am like off to the side. I may be talking to some one-on-one, but I am, I'm more inclined to not go to large social events. And sometimes that surprises people, but I'm not, I don't know. I just am more of an introvert, which is 100% true. Next question, it says, why did the Lions lose to the Chargers? That is empirically false. The Lions did win. M. Jennings says, will I be doing any Apple Arcade games? I just learned about this Apple Arcade thing. Because Gungeon has like a platforming game. I don't know what Apple Arcade is. I need to do more investigation on it. I don't know if it's like their version of Steam or whatever. Next question is from a swear word kid on Twitter. Says, hey, Dan, I love the show. I try to catch it live whenever I can. Always wondered if you're a big fighting game fan. The biggest fighting game I got into was on Super Nintendo, which was Street Fighter 2. And that was about the extent of my fighting games. I really enjoyed it. You know, I think it's a very special game for its time. The characters. There's one thing I saw one time. It was like a color map of all the characters, and it was like, you know, like a 1-inch design of each character, and they're just blocks. But you could tell what each character was based on the color. Like Blanca was a little sliver of orange on the top, and the bottom was light green. And I just think it was a very, very special game for its time. Next question is from Lee0120. Would I go back to playing Big Brother if the prize money was increased? No. A huge factor for me would be the time there would have to be immensely decreased. Next question is from Pro Lego Mina Gaming. As someone who's been on both sides of one, what's the best way to give a critique? I think the best way to give a critique is to make it as non-emotional as possible. Meaning that, oh, this game stinks. That's like a terrible criticism, right? It gives the creator or the person being critiqued no opportunity to get better or have any understanding. Or say, hey, I didn't enjoy the game because the jumping mechanic was too slidey. That is really good criticism. So I think or I didn't like this video because it seemed like you were distracted, or you didn't take it serious, or you took it too serious, or you raged in it and it was not fun to watch. So I think to give an emotionless opinion with as much actionable data as possible is a good way to give criticism. And this next question is from the boss. And I love this question. It says, how are you even still relevant? You haven't been on Big Brother in a decade. And I'll take some time to reply to him individually on Twitter. And this is no disrespect to the people that ask, like, you know, good questions. Not that this isn't a good question, but to me, it's like you put someone in a box. It's just like, hey, because you're on Big Brother, like that's the only way you're relevant. And I'm gonna respond to him in a very honest but kind way. Like, and it'll be interesting if you're into that kind of thing to see the response to that. Is that, to me, I don't even know what relevant is. You know what I mean? Like that's not something quote unquote relevant is important to me. The only thing that's important to me is that, you know, I'm able to enjoy what I do and have fun and be happy. And when I see something like that, and I'm not going to make a judgment. It may be an indication that someone is unhappy, right? Like, I don't know. I just think of, like, I wouldn't send that message to someone if I was internally happy. And I get it. But, you know, there's a lot of things that goes on in someone's life that makes them unhappy. And so that's, you know, I guess to go back on the criticism thing, like that's not, I don't know. It's not even a criticism. Well, maybe it is. Maybe he's trying to wonder. I don't know. But I'm going to have some fun and getting into a dialogue regarding that. Then let me check the last place. I'm going to check Instagram here for a couple more questions. But that stuff, I always like responding to that because most of the time, like, people may not understand that they're being rude or not expect a response. But I understand that's, you know, sometimes people are going through stuff and it's indicated in how they respond to people online. All right. Instagram, Kyle Willis 259 on Instagram says, can you give me tips to help overcome being shy? Yes. The single greatest tip I can give you is to practice not being shy. Forehead. What does that mean? Next time you go to the store, drugstore, gas station, McDonald's, fast food place, ask the person who's checking you out, the register, how their day is. Like, hey, how's your day today? They may say, good. I'm having a tough day today, or whatever. Or they may say nothing and think you're weird for asking. But the point is, you practice saying something to a stranger that was kind, and your risk level is 0 because you'll probably never see that person again, or very rare, and you just keep it moving. So it's a social environment in which it's built for very quick conversation, so you can get in and get out. So you do that enough times talking to a stranger, all of a sudden it becomes more and more easy. So just ask someone how their day is that is in a work situation like cashier. It's a great thing to practice, and then over time you'll notice that gets easier and easier. Action. This is from Yukashi on Instagram. Says, action versus thinking. What is the right balance? How do you know when you're overthinking? If you're asking this question, and I mean this in the most due respect, you're probably overthinking it. To me, it's always better to do something and then see what happens versus sit there and pontificate and do nothing. Next question, DMG 2106. What did I think about Red Dead Redemption 2? I liked it, but there's just no play. I don't have time and a place for that game because it's so deep. Like, it's so engrossing, and it's very, very well done. 10 years ago, I would have been all into it. Next question is from Bean Shapiro. Do I like beans? I enjoy beans. Best ones are kidney beans. Next question is from Cafe Rica, USA, who has a coffee shop in Southwest Michigan. If you're there, tell them Dan sent you. What is your plan for the future? How far out do I plan? If I can plan a day ahead of time, I'm in business on a micro level. Macro level, I have a general idea of where things are going, but I don't plan it out. Like, I don't plan things out super detailed on a macro level or a large level, but I get way more detailed planning on a day-to-day level. Tanner Davies 11 says, how difficult is it to separate your brand from yourself? Not at all, because like, that's me. Like, I think that's the easy part, is that like on the show and videos, that's me. I'm not like acting. I don't necessarily act that way in real life because there's not really a opportunity to. Meaning that, like, if I'm with someone, which is rare, and they're playing video games, I'm gonna get hyped and excited the same way, but it's just different. So like, I am myself when I do this stuff. And it's just, I would say it's probably the most comfortable version of myself too, is online. You know, there's some things like you put a little bit more energy into, but for the most part, it's just me, which I think makes it easy. You know, it's not like you're like, I'm putting on a show, but I'm not acting, if that makes sense. Next question is from George W 1997. Says, hey Dan, what do you do to boost your mood when you're in need of some motivation? The number one thing I found is just to get physically active. So if you're feeling tired, which sounds contradictory, if you're feeling tired, go for a walk. And it just does something to you for me, it makes my brain fire off and makes me get going. So that's always one of my go-to moves, is to just do something physical. It doesn't have to be like throw weights around or go for a sprint. Just go outside and walk, or go walk on the treadmill. It has to do something physical and get up and move around, and you'll be surprised what that'll do for you. Next question is from Mark Pacheco on Instagram. Says, what are the plans for Team Unity? Very excited for this week. We're starting a brand new game. I think there's going to be some depth to it. I think it's going to force us to be cooperative. We're going to be playing Borderlands 3 starting this Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Dan Giesing with the crew. And very excited. I think we need a new game, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really looking forward to it. Also, I'm very surprised. I have an Epic Games content creator code. So people that have bought Borderlands 3, there's been some people that have used my code, which is just Dan Giesling. So if you're buying Borderlands 3 on the Epic Store, and I sent one tweet out, and I checked it before the podcast. I'm just like, because I don't know, I don't ever talk about the fact that we have a creator code, and I was just surprised. I'm like, wow, a lot of people have bought the game, and if you did that for Borderlands 3, thank you, I appreciate it. And the last question is from Kay Mellum, who is also a YouTube community member, dialed into the MLB series. Says, how do you keep a positive outlook all the time? And I think that's maybe one of the misconceptions, is that I always do my best to stay positive, but there's moments too where like I gotta work through it. And But it's kind of like being shy, right? The more you practice being positive or trying to look at things in a positive light, the easier it becomes and more like second nature. So I think it starts with small things, right? And, how you look at things and catching yourself in it and then just kind of building from there. But let me check. I did send out a snap here. I do want to, I said we'd do snap, so I'll do snap. This is from Squash Gourd on Snapchat. So what made me get into streaming? I did a podcast on it, but for all intents and purposes, individual named DJ Wheat, who works for Twitch, is the one that got me into streaming or got me aware of what streaming is. And this was from Blake on Snapchat. Says, I don't think I've ever seen you be negative. What keeps you so enthusiastic and positive? One of the things that I can shed different light on this is that I kind of feel like the same way I do when I was on Big Brother the first time. I was a school teacher, so I knew that I had students watching me, so that helped me immensely make sure that I didn't do anything negative or make fun of anyone or anything like that. So it's a little bit of a stretch, but similar. And I kind of feel like the same way with Twitch. Like I have people that, or the community that watches the show because of that. So it helps me even more stay more focused on being positive and not getting salty. Not that that's in my general vernacular, but it makes it even easier knowing that the community's watching and that I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Because I know that people are watching and that's important. And that's really one of the staples of the community is staying positive. So having that, I don't want to say it's added pressure, but I'm always aware of that. So it helps me. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. So because they're watching, it helps me internally and really helps me when not on the show as well. It's just, we've been doing the show for 2.5 years. And so it's had an impact making it easier in my daily life as well. So it's kind of funny just to even think about that now. But anyways, nonetheless, hope you guys enjoyed the extended podcast. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. We had some good ones this time, and I really appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for all the love. Thank you for sharing the podcast. I think the past month, I don't have the numbers, but I think the past month we doubled in terms of people listening in for whatever reason. So if you've been sharing it, you've been posting the links to it and telling your friends about it, thank you so much. It means a lot. And as always, hope you guys enjoy the mini podcasts throughout the week. I'm going to continue, now with the new AirPods, I'm going to continue to try to do at least one of those, car rants a week. And thank you guys for all the feedback. It means a lot. And thank you for allowing me to be part of your day or your week or however often you listen at the gym, work, Skokie, Illinois, school, playing Pokemon Go, listening at the same time. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And it's always, I'm super grateful for the opportunity. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next Monday for another fresh podcast and hope you have a great week.